I'm here at the scene of the crime spree, right behind me.
Strange.
Vice Mayor Strange, you'll address her properly.
You can kiss my foot.
Mr. Rickard, you're out of order.
FBI, we are asking you to investigate this council. Please look into this council, how they award contracts, the bid process, how they use their positions to benefit their friends and themselves, how they use their positions to attack residents and critics and neighbors and business competition. FBI, will you please look into this?
And I welcome the FBI here. If you notice, Mr. Thompson, with his plea for the FBI and his watchdog group, this city runs the cleanest in this whole county. I guarantee
He was served a federal subpoena this morning.
Did receive a subpoena this morning, and we're going to cooperate 100% with the subpoena. And
Most of you who were involved up here, you gaslighted me. You tried to say I was crazy. And now we know that that's not true. And there's a lot of other issues I've been asking about as well.
"26 days. 26 days. That's how many days until the Lynn Haven corruption trial is scheduled. 26 days is all. A little more than 3 weeks. It's going to be in Tallahassee. And the judge has said that he'll open up, he'll put it in a bigger courtroom if there are a lot of people who want to be in the gallery and watch the proceedings. So it starts on a Monday, on February 27th. This is all contingent upon the judge's imminent ruling on if he's going to issue sanctions against the prosecutors and the investigators. That still hasn't come out yet. I fully anticipate it coming out before Friday or by Friday, because the defense is going to need to know, if there are sanctions and some of the evidence is not admitted or whatever. They don't have a lot of time to plan that. The judge has also carved out a day in case there has to be another hearing before the actual trial, assuming there is a trial. But today was a big day. There were 7 filings, 7 briefs filed with the court today, and I'm going to show you some of it. In fact, I'm going to show you the entire witness list from the government, who they want to call as witnesses, who the defendants each want to call as witnesses. There are probably about 75 names. And they have to put all of them. Anybody that they could possibly call to the witness stand have to be listed, and all of the exhibits have to be listed. You'll see on the witness list that some witnesses are listed as category A, some witnesses are listed as category B. If you see that, that means category A is very likely to be up there. That's in the case in chief, as they call it. That is going to be the main argument of either the defense or the prosecutors. If you see a B next to their name, they may be called or they may not be called. Even the ones that say A may or may not be called. But there are many of them who surely will be called. And you're going to see names on there. You're going to see people you know. You're going to see people who have been discussed in this context. You're going to see names of some people who will surprise you. We don't know what they're on there for, what they're going to be asked. But the defendants are listing, most of the witnesses they're listing, I believe they expect are going to be friendly witnesses. And the prosecutors, of course, the witnesses they list, they expect them to be friendly to the prosecution. Wow. I'm also going to show you a little bit of the exhibit list. And I chose a particular page because I think it's the most interesting today. It may not be the most interesting after the trial starts, but it's the most interesting, I think, today, and I'll show you why. Also filed today, the prosecutors filed their recommended jury instructions, what the judge wants to read to the jury, their instructions. And the defense, I'm sure, doesn't like that. The defense will rebut that, and then the judge will decide, assuming there is a trial, what the jury instructions are going to be. So each side now is jostling for what the jury is going to be told, what they're going to be told about, for example, developer James Finch's health. The prosecutors don't want the jury to know that James Finch was in Jacksonville in a hospital suffering from a brain bleed, a stroke, and a coma, and extensive rehab from October 4th to October 30th. The hurricane was on October 10th. This is in 2018. The prosecutors don't think that the jury should know that. In fact, as I skimmed over this stuff today, it appears to me that the prosecutors don't even want, they're questioning even if Finch was really there. Yeah. Now, so Judge Walker's looking at all of this now and making decisions. And I don't know how he's going to feel about the prosecutors coming back and saying things over and over and over. For example, the prosecutors dropped the charge that Mayor Anderson had the city pay for the cleanup of her home after the hurricane. They've dropped the charge. In fact, on December 13, just a month and a half ago or so, they showed the property lines of Mayor Anderson's home, and the judge said, well, let me show you what the judge said. The judge said the land survey shows it's not Anderson's property, which they knew all along. The FBI and Sheriff Ford and them, they knew all along that wasn't her property. But, and so the FBI dropped that charge, but they keep bringing it up. They even though they're not charging her with it, they're only charging her with two things at this point. Because they dropped 62 charges against her. But they want to bring up to the jury stuff that they're not charging her with anymore. Isn't that amazing? I'm learning a whole lot about how federal prosecutions work throughout this, because it doesn't get much more interesting than this case. The judge himself, the defense attorneys, and even the prosecutors, they've really never seen anything like this. They have not seen this many iterations, this many rewrites of a giant indictment. Everybody's on pins and needles because the one filing that hasn't come through yet, that everybody's waiting on, is whether or not Judge Walker is going to issue sanctions for vindictive prosecution and, things like selective investigation and all this type of stuff. That could change all this. And that's going to happen any day, any moment. And it will decide how this is going to go. It'll decide if the prosecutors are going to even continue it or not. What if Judge Walker were to issue sanctions that were crippling to the prosecution? Are they going to go through with it anyway to try to convict the former mayor of Lynn Haven on 2 counts after 62 have been thrown out, 25 by the prosecutors themselves. You should see the filings. You should read through all these filings. They're unbelievable. I mean, I understand that prosecutors want to stack the deck, but there's a point at which it's way beyond reasonably stacking the deck or case law or any of that. And I've got a feeling that some of this stuff that's been filed is really going to antagonize the court's patience. Things keep coming up that have been taken off the table. And the case is already, what did Mark Walker say, Judge Walker? He said that it's already, did he say confusing or, and he said it's going to get even more so. Oh, I think it's in this right here. It's complicated. You see above that? He said that the case is complicated and he anticipates that it's going to get even more complicated. And that's with just two counts. So for them to try, for the prosecutors to keep bringing back stuff that they're not even charging her on makes it even more complicated for anybody, but especially for a jury. I mean, my goodness, how long have we been looking at this and talking about this? Most people who would serve on a jury, most of us, our friends and our families, don't really know how local governments work. I mean, I got a political science degree, a bachelor's degree in political science in 1998 from Cal State Fullerton. And I did talk radio. I mean, it was a syndicated show. It was kind of a big deal. And I talked about politics all the time, but I really didn't pay that much attention to local politics. I didn't really know until I saw it and participated in it, how local politics work. I didn't know the difference between a strong mayor city and a weak mayor city. I thought that probably just meant a mayor was good or not so good, you know. It's going to be, there's going to be a lot of stuff there. And I think one of the things Judge Walker is trying to do is to make it as simple as possible for the jury to follow. All right. So get to it. Is that what you're saying? Let's get to it. Okay. I'll show you the witness list and some of the exhibits that'll be shown right after this.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at, right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome.
Have you received a speeding ticket for which you want no points placed onto your driving record? I'm El Saulene, 850-215-0628. Let me help you.
All right, let's take a look at who is on defendant Margot Anderson's witness list. Who is she looking to call? Here we go. Can you see that? So category A, these are the people who are going to be crucial to the main argument of the defendants. And there's former Commissioner Antonius Barnes, current Commissioner Brandon Aldridge. Wow. Former Commissioner Rodney Friend, Joseph Ashbrook. I don't know who that is. Former Commissioner Dan Russell. Oh, that's going to be interesting. Woo! I'll tell you who's not looking forward to February 27 is Commissioner Dan Russell. Commissioner Pat Perno is on there. Former city manager before Michael White, Joel Schubert, who is now the assistant county manager. Joel Schubert's on the list. Robert Jackson, Bobby Baker, who works for the city. Vicki Gaynor, the city manager. Julie Higbee at the time. All right, let's look at some more. I'm not going to read every single name, but these are some of the main ones. Here's who else is on our list. I'll read you some of the names that I either saw testify in the evidentiary hearing not too long ago. And if I have any idea what their role might be or was, I'll explain that to you as well. George Roberts. George Roberts is a big contractor. George Roberts is a big road builder and a good friend of James Finch. And he told Judge Walker that James Finch was in Jacksonville in the hospital and was in absolutely no condition to be directing any corruption in Lynn Haven, and certainly not telling anybody which pit to bury the vegetative debris. And as a matter of fact, George Roberts told the judge, I know James Finch did not direct anybody to put vegetative debris in his pits because I did. That's what George Roberts said. He goes, I directed that. He was working with Crowder Gulf, the big national company that comes in and helps clean up communities after disasters like this. Mike Swearington. I'm going to skip through some of these names, okay? Until I see a name that I might have an idea of why they're there. Adam Albritton. So Adam Albritton was the city attorney who pled guilty to some of this corruption. He was the attorney for GAC Contractors president Derwin White. At the same time, he was the attorney for the city. Now, remember that name, Adam Albritton, because he wrote a crucial letter that I've shown on the show. He wrote an email, a justification email for the price. He basically, Derwin White told him to email the big hauling company, Ashbrit, and tell them that GAC won the bid at $4.70 per square yard, while he was also the attorney for the city. Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting one there. More than I can say. Chris Forehand is on the list. He is the city contracted engineer who owns Panhandle Engineering. He's going to be a major component of this trial. Big time. I'm sure he's another one that's not looking forward to this, although he says he has immunity. I don't know. I don't know yet if he has immunity for everything or just for certain things. I don't know, but I know he's not worried about it or hasn't been. But I just don't think he's going to be comfortable with the cross-examination and what we're going to learn from all this. Maybe he will be. Maybe he's looking forward to it. I don't know. I don't talk to him. I have talked to him, but I haven't talked to him about this. Jay Moody, he was an accountant that the city hired, and Jay Moody is sort of a good guy in this story. He was telling Michael White, according to the testimony and everything, that damn, ECS is charging a hell of a lot for this cleanup. What the hell's going on here? So they didn't want to keep him around too long. So Jay Moody was saying, what's going on with these super, super high prices that ECS is charging? ECS, of course, is owned by Mickey White, who is the nephew of now deceased Derwin White, the president of GAC Contractors then, who really was... I've seen it in the emails, and I've seen what the FBI has told a judge about it. He was really one of the big players in determining who gets what, how much, when, and all that stuff. Then we go down the list. There's Michael White, former number 37, former city manager, who's also pled guilty. Mickey White, who I just told you about. Then you go down. Shane Collins. That's Dr. Shane from the radio in Bay County. Shane Collins is on there. Nisa Wilkins, the TV news lady, is on there. Now, remember when I tell you this, that this does not mean that the names on here does not mean they've done anything wrong. Some of them are involved in this. Some of them are not. They have knowledge, or their interviews with the FBI were interesting, or some other reason. So when I read these names, don't make any assumptions unless I explain to you what I saw, please, at the hearing. I just mentioned these names because they're local celebrities, really. Let's see who else. James Finch, Lee Anderson, Margot Anderson's husband, and Margot Anderson herself. So that's the witness list, 51 for her. Do you want to take a look at James Finch's list? Or should let me look, or the government's list. You want to see who the government's going to call to testify against Margot Anderson and James Finch? The trial is in 26 days, scheduled for a Monday in Tallahassee. You can go to it. Judge Walker said he's going to open it up. What I mean by that is if it requires a bigger courtroom, he said that he'll get a bigger courtroom and they'll hold the trial there. One thing Chief Judge Mark Walker has been very strong about is transparency. He believes that too many federal proceedings and federal documents are not open to the public, and he prefers to err on the side of transparency. And thank God. Don't you wish more judges would do that? No, Bernie, I want more secrecy in government. Some of you do. By the way, all of this has really caused a lot of anxiety locally. You've got people posting weird stuff on Facebook. Weird stuff. People are very angry at me and at the Beacon of Bay County, Jody and Jerry, for showing you this stuff, for reporting what we saw in the evidentiary hearing. And you've got a lot of people who were not in those proceedings trying to say what happened in those proceedings. It's weird. Today, a former candidate for Lynn Haven City Commission posted a really weird post on her Facebook page, talking about how like 80 or 90% of what Jody posts on the Beacon of Bay County is false and vindictive or something like that. It was weird. Oh, and how she feels very, very sorry for any of you who don't agree with her. This was a candidate for office. And I can't help but wonder if now that Judy Tinder has resigned and Brandon Aldridge is not running again, and you've got all this stuff going on, I wonder if maybe people who have run in the past are jockeying for position to get appointed to the seat that Judy Tinder has left vacant as of yesterday. The city of Lynn Haven has called for a special meeting. And if I know the corrupt people running the city, and I do, they're scheming to not leave that up to the voters. They do not want to leave it up to the voters. And I think they're looking for a way, and they might have a way in the charter. Quite frankly, I've heard this and I haven't verified it, but it's probably true, that they have the authority to appoint somebody if they do it quick. And of course, they want to do it quick. They don't want to leave it up to you. I guarantee you that. But the weird stuff going on, the willingness for people to post really crazy and empty stuff, saying that that's misinformation, don't listen to the Beacon of Bay County. I'll tell you what it tells me about the Beacon of Bay County on Facebook is that they've progressed. All right, they've got over 3,000 followers now. But what I mean by that, it's the old quote that's attributed to Gandhi, and it goes like this: first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. So right now, the Beacon of Bay County is no longer ignored, and they're no longer just laughed at. Now they're being fought with. So they're doing great. Could you imagine posting on Facebook that 80% of what Bernie Thompson is telling you is false, and he's got a personal vendetta, which, they do that. And I'm in the courtroom, I'm showing you the documents, and they're not. They want access. It's so weird. It reminds me so much of being on a playground, and you've got the mean kids, right? And you've got those who want to be with the popular crowd. It's so amazing. I'm smiling, but what social media has tempted people to do is it's really how do I say this? It's really drawn out the dark and dumb side of people. And somebody asked me one time if I thought Facebook makes you dumb, or mean, and my answer is no. This is a big deal to me. Tell me what you think of this, and then I'll show you James Finch's witness list and the government's witness list. Tell me if you agree. I want you to think about this, though. We're just firing off an answer. You might want to digest it, think about it. I did. So does social media make you mean or make you dumb? Well, Bernie, I've seen people be mean and dumb on social media, and they don't do it in person. So yeah. All right. Here's what I say. I say it is the ultimate double-edged sword, that just like power and money, it does not change you, but it brings out who you already are deep in the inside, on the inside. So if by nature and on the inside, you're kind of a petty person, or you enjoy seeing somebody else hurt, or you want to chop the next guy down so that you look better, or whatever it is, right? Whatever those parts in all of us that we have to control. If that's who you are mostly, though, deep on the inside, then that's what you'll be more of on social media. That's what you'll be more of if you win the lottery. That's what you'll be more of if you ever held a seat of power, right? People who go to Congress don't change. I thought of this with Steve Sutherland. This is how I thought of all this stuff. We did all we could to get him to Congress. He went to Congress. Everybody said, why did he change? I said, he didn't change. He just, it just brought out what he really was deep on the inside. And most of us aren't really all that good deep on the inside, which is why values matter so much, right? We all have this stuff. But if you get a lot of power and a lot of money, or you get on social media and get some anonymity, or whatever it is, I'm telling you, I don't think it makes you dumber or meaner. I think it just brings out who you already are. Oh, boy. All right, let's look at Finch. Let's look at Finch's. No. Let's look at the government's witness list. Here it is. Here's who they want to call to show that Margot Anderson and James Finch are the Bonnie and Clyde of local corruption. These are the people who they want to go up there and tell all they know about the house cleanup and everything else. You can read the names. I don't know a lot of these. It says NOAA official regarding shore stabilization funds. Okay. Who else do we know on that list? There's Joel Schubert again. He was the former city manager before Michael White. Current assistant county manager. There's Mickey White again, owner of ECS. Michael White, former city manager. Those are the main ones right there. Those are the main. Oh, Ricky Ramey. Look at that right around the middle. The vindictive and vulgar Lynn Haven chief of police. He's on the list. Those are I don't even, some of these, at least half of them on that short list up top left, I don't know who they are. All right, may call if the need arises. Here's a bunch of folks that could be called. I see, all right, Keith Baker, he's a former county commissioner. Alan Bird, he is a contractor who really got screwed over by Derwin White and Michael White and the city, and he is suing the city of Lynn Haven, and boy, that's a big lawsuit. That's come into play. He testified December 12th. You've got on that list, let's see who else. I see Pat Perno, Commissioner Pat Perno, former police chief Matt Reimer, George Roberts, who I talked about a moment ago. You've got some other people on there who have pled guilty, who really got strong-armed into pleading guilty. And the more I learn about their situations, the more terrible I feel for them. Dan Russell, former commissioner, Dan Russell. Jim Slonina, he is also an owner of Panhandle Engineering. That is who Michael White said, former city manager Michael White, who's pled guilty, said, I was bringing him the bag of cash. He said he was bringing Jim Slonina the bag of cash in order to get to buy some land. He had a bag of cash to buy some land from Jim Slonina, is what he said. So that would be Major Jimmy Stanford. Now, Major Jimmy Stanford is Sheriff Tommy Ford's main man. He is the head of the Public Trust Unit. He's the one cracking down on public corruption in Bay County, Major Jimmy Stanford. Now, he's also on the defense's bad actor list. Doesn't mean that he's a bad actor. It means that he's on that list, and the judge will decide whether or not sanctions should be imposed. You've got Judy Tinder, former commissioner. Doesn't that sound weird? Former commissioner and now mayoral candidate. Greg Wilson, the former assistant state attorney. Prosecutor Jerry Wilson, a roofer. And then it says any witnesses identified on the defendants list. And then it's got a few of their exhibits that they might want to show. We'll know more about those exhibits soon when the motions and exhibits and all kinds of other stuff are released to the public in a few days. You'll be able to match up what those are. All right, let's take a look at Finch's witness list. All right, so James Finch, he's got Michael White up there. Remember, if it says A next to his name, then that means that's a very, well, these guys are for sure's, a bunch of these guys, but it means that they're going to be part of the main argument that the defendant makes. The case in chief, as they call it. Mickey White, Chris Forehand, Vicky Gaynor, current city manager. Ooh, that's going to be. You're going to want to be there. You're going to want to be there and see this trial. Assuming there is a trial. That's what Judge Walker said. Especially with city manager Vicky Gaynor's testimony. That's going to be, you don't want to miss it. Let's just put it that way. All right. Again, Joel Schubert, Antonius Barnes. Now, Antonius Barnes is interesting because remember, he's the former commissioner. He's one of the main witnesses for the government. And he's supposed to say that James Finch bribed me. But every time that he's been asked under oath, he said James Finch did not bribe me. Never been bribed. Never sold my vote. Was he going to go up there and say something else in front of Judge Walker? So that's one of the main witnesses for the prosecutors. There he is again, Jay Moody, the accountant that was raising red flags about the ECS billing. Former Commissioner Rodney Friend, mayoral candidate Judy Tinder, and Dan Russell, former city commissioner. Let's see some more witness. Whoa, there's a whole bunch more. Remember, if it says A, that's very likely, and if it says B, that's less likely. There's Pat Perno, current commissioner. Bobby Baker works for the city. There's Jim Slonina again, the one of the owners at Panhandle Engineering, the city contracted engineer, who Michael White said he was bringing the bag of cash to buy some land from. Chief Ricky Ramey, Police Chief Ricky Ramey. Wow, there's the first, look at number 21. That's the first time we've seen this name. That is the FBI special agent that really led this whole thing. And that's Larry Borghini, who was also named in the defense bad actor list that the judge is looking over to see if there's any there, I guess. Waiting on that any day. Jimmy Stanford, again, there's Major Jimmy Stanford, the head of Sheriff Tommy Ford's public trust unit. He is cracking down on public corruption throughout Bay County. And one of his investigators, Jeremy Mathis, Lieutenant Jeremy Mathis, and there's another investigator. These are all sheriff investigators. Aubrey Chance, Tommy Ford, Sheriff Tommy Ford himself is on the witness list. Mayor Anderson's husband, Lee Anderson. George Roberts again. A couple of folks who testified on December 12th. Mike Swearington, Troy Seifert, Alan Bird, Greg Wilson, Amber Guy. Amber Guy was the FEMA. She was like the FEMA director here. She was, I don't know what her title was, but she was like the main FEMA person here. And one of the craziest things at the evidentiary hearing, okay, evidently there is an FBI note, a 302, where I'm pretty sure I'm getting this right. We'll know soon, though, because they'll be public. Where Vicki Gaynor, city manager now, said that it was late one night. She had gone down the hallway after the hurricane and went in to see city manager Michael White. But Michael White was actually otherwise detained. Said that she walked in on them making whoopee. Yes. And but just a month and a half ago, city manager Vicki Gaynor sat up there and said, absolutely not. She said that's not what happened. Now, how that got on the FBI official note, I don't know. She said that's not what happened. When they talked about were they having sex, when she walked in, Vicki Gaynor clutched her pearls and said, absolutely not. She said, what I saw was Amber was slumped over. And she was surprised. She was surprised that Amber was in there with Michael White. But they weren't having sex, she said, under oath to the judge. The FEMA lady was just slumped over, is all. So that'll be interesting to explore that a little bit. Michael White went up there and said that's absolutely not true. I'm a happily married man. So there's questions about the FEMA lady and her relationship with the officials. Okay, that's why her name's on there. Let's get back to the Finch list. Bill Husfeld's on there. Bill Husfeld. Bill Now, he's the superintendent who yesterday announced his early retirement. Well, that's going to be interesting too. But that's government way. Here we go. Here's back to James Finch witness list. Let's see who else. Jerry Wilson, the roofer again. He testified on the 12th. Let's get up here to the top right. Guy Tennell, former county commissioner and sheriff. Guy Tennell's on there. Any witness on the defense Anderson's list, any witness on the government's list. Let's see. Okay. Mike Gordon, the former building official that they arrested. And there are a lot of people telling me that was a wrongful arrest. And there may have been vindictiveness on the part of Vicky Gaynor, is what some people are saying. I don't know. But there's a lot that's going to come out. There's some interesting names on there, but I don't know what they're. I just don't know what they're there to talk about. So February 27 is when this is scheduled in Tallahassee. All right, now let's take a look at the final thing I want to show you, and that is the James Finch exhibits. I'm going to look at your comments real quick. Okay, so the writing's a little small. You got to do what Michelle's done. And okay. So let's see. Bill says here, cannot govern if they're. That's true. I don't know if they didn't mention, Rhonda, if she was slumped over Michael White or not, but just when city manager Vicky Gaynor said that she absolutely was not having sex, she was just slumped over. I mean, that like triggered more questions to me. Like, what do you mean slumped over? I mean, I've got an imagination now. I'm wondering what the heck that means, but fully clothed. There's no telling, Roy. There's no telling. Yeah, John, you can bring food in the courtroom, by the way. When the trial begins, you can bring the food in the courtroom. My buddy Kurt from high school. I know Kurt from high school, and he is a retired detective himself. Hey, Kurt. Clinton also said he wasn't. That's right, Kurt. So you never know. Let's see here. Kurt says the judge has the ability to bring people's careers to a quick end. Yeah, that's so interesting. And you know about that. I'm sure you've seen that over your career. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to expect. I'm not even going to guess. I've already given some thoughts about what Judge Walker could or couldn't do when he issues his ruling, whether or not there'll be sanctions and what those sanctions will be. But let's get to the final part here, and let's take a look. Are you ready for this? Let's take a look at some of the exhibits, and there's something very important that I want to point out in the exhibit list right after this. It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan can make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at PCAirrepair.com. Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777. Now, there were a lot of pages of exhibits, okay? And I just picked one page from James Finch's exhibits because when on the last day of the evidentiary hearing on December 13th, the first thing that the prosecutors pointed out was that James Finch called a meeting at his home on October 31st, the day after he got back from the 3-week stay at the hospital in Jacksonville after he had a stroke and a coma, right? And he gets back and he's feeble, and all these witnesses said that he was in no shape. Didn't even know about the hurricane until he got home. That's how fragile a state he was in. You can imagine that if you were, in your early 70s and you had a brain bleed, a stroke, and a coma, that when you get home from the hospital, you're probably not snapping fingers and calling a lot of shots. At least that's what all the witnesses said, and that's what the documents seem to indicate. Okay, but the prosecutors said no. He was just, this is what they told the grand jury, he was just indisposed and in rehab and otherwise out of pocket. So they told the grand jury he was out of pocket. So what they said was the very next day that he got home, he had a big meeting in his house. This is what Michael White, the former city manager, said in an FBI interview, that Chris Forehand was there, that George Roberts was there, all these Derwin White was there, Michael White, Mayor Anderson, a whole bunch of people. And James Finch was telling everybody, start putting everything in my pit. And the very next day, the city said, put everything in James's pit. That's the government's main argument. That the day after he got home, he called a big meeting. Now, Michael White has since changed that. He initially told the FBI all those people were there, but all those people showed up to the court on December 12th and said, there was no meeting. I was not at any meeting. James was out of it. Couldn't stand on his own very long. Couldn't dress himself. Like James, there was no meeting on October 31st. What are you talking about? So what all these people said. But the prosecutor, and Michael White changed his story just a few months ago. See, like 2 years ago, he told the FBI all these people were there. But just a few months ago, he changed his story. He told the FBI, well, really, it was just Derwin White, who's dead, me, Margot, and James. It was just the four of us. Because all the other people he said before, they all said, I wasn't there. What are you talking about? So the main thing the prosecutors are standing on is that Finch called a meeting at his home October 31st. All right, so let's look at the Finch exhibit. All right, so I realized that you can't see this. I saw what you were saying. So on the top right, okay, on the top right here, it says there's October 30th and October 29, and there's October 31st, a couple. So these dates are interesting to me. What these exhibits are is on October 29, the day before Finch got home, there's some Michael White emails, city manager. Okay, I want to know what's in those. Michael White emails the day Finch got home. Chris Forehand, the city contracted engineer, emails on the day there was supposed to be this meeting that the government says James Finch convened. Emails from Chris Forehand that day. Michael White emails, a Michael White letter. And then the very next day, November 1st, there's a Michael White email. Yeah, this is going to be super interesting. What was in the emails on the day and the day before and the day after James Finch called this meeting where he bossed everybody around and said, give me all the business. If that meeting didn't take place, there's no case. It seems to me that it all hinges on that. The best I can tell at this point. That was the first thing they said, and really all they said was about that meeting that everybody says didn't happen. everybody except Michael White now. He's the only living person who says that meeting happened. And he's pled guilty and has a deal, a plea deal. Is he a good character witness? But I mean, you go through this and there is photos of Ricky Ramey, photos of Michael White, photos of Ricky. Stop it. I have no reason to think it's anything like that. Okay. Photos of Dan Russell. I've seen a photo of all them together. They were all buddies. They were all bros. Let's see. Affidavit of Greg Wilson, April 21st, 2022. I'll tell you what I think that's going to be about. That's right after the first evidentiary hearing in March. And God, it's so scary to tell you some of these things that happened. But during that evidentiary hearing, FBI special agent retired Larry Borghini was on the witness stand. And now retired prosecutor Stephen Coons was questioning him about Greg Wilson, because Greg Wilson said that the FBI sent him into GAC and was asking him information about Derwin White and James Finch after Finch already had an attorney. And so the defense is saying that they invaded attorney-client privilege, a violation of the Sixth Amendment. But on the witness stand, FBI agent Larry Borghini, now retired, said that he never directed Greg Wilson to do anything. He was not an FBI informant. He was not doing anything with them. Under oath. And then a little bit later, there's an affidavit of Greg Wilson. And I think that affidavit could be information saying, yes, I was, and here's the proof. Later on, just a couple of months, within the last couple of months, in fact, within the last few weeks, there was a filing that showed that Greg Wilson had a proffer or a deal. So if it is determined by the judge that FBI Special Agent retired Larry Borghini lied about directing or asking Greg Wilson about this stuff under oath, then you can see where these sanctions I'm talking about are being considered. The Finch exhibits are unbelievable. And look there at the bottom right, James Finch medical records, because the government is now questioning whether or not Finch was really there doing a rehab over a brain bleed and a stroke. I mean, it could have been just a drunk tank. That's the kind of stuff that the prosecutors are implying in writing, in briefs. So this October 31st date is going to be the crux of it. There's so much real corruption in Bay County. How do I know? Well, there was a search warrant affidavit that was released and then resealed that showed all kinds of stuff where the FBI made the case to a judge that Bay County is more corrupt than New Jersey and New Orleans, and it named names. One of the names it named just announced early retirement yesterday, Bill Husfeld. That doesn't mean that Bill Husfeld is guilty of doing anything wrong, but damn, there's a lot of your name wasn't on there, unless you're a couple of the other guys who's watching. But I just don't think George Gaynor's watching the show or others. But I know they know who extended the hurricane cleanup, inflated the prices, and lined their pockets, but they haven't gone after him. The evidence is overwhelming. They have it. But instead, they're doing this October 31st. There was a meeting that James Finch called that everybody says never happened. And how could it happen when Finch was barely not able to dress himself? It had to happen on the 31st because on November 1st, there's this letter that they claim Michael White wrote basically at the direction of the Bonnie and Clyde of public corruption that there's no evidence of. But they've got all the evidence that shows who the real criminals are. This is all going to be, regardless of what people are posting on Facebook with all this misinformation, there are some people freaking out in Bay County right now, calling friends and having them post weird stuff on Facebook. Don't listen to the Beacon of Bay County or the Bernie Thompson show. What are you talking about? I'm showing you the documents. I'm telling you what I saw. And let me ask you this. Who's been more right about where this case is headed? WMBB that claims to have broken the story, or what I've been telling you? They still haven't told you that the judges granted the request of the defendants to unseal the motion and the exhibits. Still haven't told you that. Took them 2 weeks to tell you about the bad actor list. They had you convinced that Margot Anderson and James Finch were the Bonnie and Clyde of local corruption. And I told you I'm going to go find it. I'm going to go look at it. I'm going to see all the evidence and show it to you. And I'll be damned if the evidence showed that they didn't do it and that somebody else did do it. I keep showing it to you. And now 62 of the 64 charges have been dropped. 25 by the prosecutors themselves. Who's been telling you the truth? WMBB or me? Oh, don't listen to the misinformation. Hey, can I tell you one last thing before I jump out of here? My thoughts about the term misinformation. It's something we never really heard much about 5 years ago or before. And you know why? Because people would be embarrassed to say that. Okay. Like you don't hear me saying that that's misinformation or people are pumping misinformation, whatever. Even if somebody is clearly wrong, which I've been at times, I don't say that. You know why? Because anybody who says that there's misinformation out there, and Jamie Warwick said that recently, and Jamie, you're too smart for that, and you're not emotional. You only go on facts. So here's what I'm saying. If you use the term, whoever you are, I saw it on Facebook again. If you use the term misinformation, you are claiming to be infallible. You're a fool. You're not infallible. You don't know what is misinformation. You don't know all the facts. You don't have a monopoly on the truth. Nobody does. I want a place where ideas collide and reason and truth prevail, okay? And the only way that happens is if ideas collide and the opportunity for reason and truth to prevail happen. But for there to be unapproved things said or shown, unapproved by you, you're a fool or you're dishonest. I have a lot of respect for people with great intellect who don't agree with me. And no wise person, nobody with wisdom is going to use the word misinformation. It assumes that you're infallible. It's foolish. and I laugh at you. I mock you. It's so foolish. But it's an attempt to discredit. It's an attempt to avoid argument and conversation. It's an attempt to block the truth. It's dishonest, it's deceitful, and it's stupid. So I discourage you from using the term misinformation. Oh my God, could you imagine? How do you think science works? How do you think truth and investigations work? Misinformation. Huh? All right, I'm going to get out of here. I want to thank the Unknown Patriot as well, right there, for your support. And I'm going to punch out of here. So much more to bring you as this crescendo continues. And it's happening fast at this point. Thanks for being with me, and I'll see you soon.